What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Kruger, surprising you with new topics every single week and jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC. And we've been dealing with some technical errors. I know you guys will not have to deal with this, but I have been trying to get my laptop to work for half an hour now, and let me tell you, I really need to upgrade my technology. If I'm ever going to take this podcast to the sky, we're definitely going to need to upgrade some stuff. But on today's episode, we have a little bit of everything, a little bit of recap, a little bit of predictions. We're going to keep it somewhat simple here. As we know, Dana White's Contender Series is live and going down, and by the time you're listening to this, it's probably the day of that we have episode 3 of season 10 dropping. Going to be fun. 5 new fights. We're dropping our predictions for each and every one of those. As well, UFC Sacramento just went down this past weekend. We're going to be giving our recap of everything that went down. We went 9-4 on predictions, and we correctly predicted, I should say, another main event in a row. So we're on fire. Lots of good stuff to talk about. And I started my new job. That's right. I have started my new job. I'm a consultant, and I have a good feeling I'm going to be pretty good at it. Great first day. Everything's gone well, and I'm just excited to dive into it and become an absolute corporate monster and take over the world. No, I'm just kidding, but not really. So yeah, good times. Met some nice people at work. Lots going on in my life. I'm very excited about everything, and I'm more excited to dive into some fights. So we're going to kick today's episode off with some Dana White's Contender Series predictions. We have 5 new matchups for you guys coming at you this Tuesday, August 25th. So starting off, we have Nick Galante versus Carlos El Tito Petrozula, however you want to pronounce it. Nick is the minus 250 favorite. Carlos is the plus 185 underdog. 15-1 record on the Contender Series is very good. 29 years of age for the underdog, Carlos Petrozula. For Nick Galante, he's 28. They both naturally fight in the middleweight division. 6'1" for each of them. The reach is similar as well. These two boys are similar, but we're going to start with the underdog, Carlos Petrozula. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. If you couldn't tell from his name, he was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Trains out of Brothers MMA, the same gym, actually, as Kevin Vallejos. That was right. Kevin Vallejos is a top 10 men's featherweight, and he also trains at the same gym. Of those 15 wins, 15 finishes. That's right. 8 knockouts, 7 subs. His only loss is to Jolsatan Santos in the LFA last year. It was his first ever professional loss. By the way, Jolsatan Santos was recently undefeated up until this year. So not too bad of a loss. Other than that, he's fought in a lot of guys with iffy records, but I will say this guy was a champion in Samurai Fight House, good league out there in South America. He's had 1 fight in the LFA, which was his only loss, which isn't the most encouraging. But other than that, he's dominated every single fight that he's ever been in, which is always encouraging. Some of the records of his opponents: when he was 3-0, fought a guy who was 9-5. When he fought for his first championship, the champion was 2-3. Then the guy was 3-2. When he was 7-0, fought a guy who was 9-2-1. Then a guy who was 10-5. Then a guy who was 11-25. Then a guy who was 23-19. I always like to look at the records just to get a sense of who he's fought in. And really, when he was 13-0, he took on a guy who was 10-0 and lost to him. Got knocked out in round 1. So Carlos Petrozula is the underdog. He was a champion in a South American promotion. He has a BJJ style of fighting, but he has more knockouts than submissions. His last fight was in December, where he got a round 1 TKO. So it has been about 8 months since his last fight. We'll see how he does against the favorite, Nick Galante. Nick Galante hails from Freehold, New Jersey, on a 5-fight winning streak with a record of 7-1. He trains out of Dante River BJJ. I think he's Eric Nolan trains there. Eric Nolan, of course, took on Bosner Susakarov on like 4 days' notice. Luca Fernandez also trains there. He was on season 9 of the Contender Series, did lose his debut, unfortunately. Those are 2 fighters that we do recognize. But of his 7 wins, 5 finishes, 1 KO and 4 subs. Both of his losses were by decision. He ultimately has been all over the place. He's had some grappling matchups, took on Phil Rowe. That was back in 2022. In terms of MMA, he's been focusing on that since 2023. So I guess his only other loss that I was looking at was in his amateur career. But yes, he's been in the CFFC his entire fighting career. He won that belt in March of this year, so already holds a win there with a decision win over Austin Clayton, which means we know he can go 5 rounds, which is very encouraging. His opponent's record's also very iffy. 7-5, 6-2, 5-0 the last few, which aren't too bad. Maybe I'm tweaking, but I definitely want to pick. Sorry, Nick Galante. Nick Galante, yeah, maybe he's good, but some's just screaming underdog upset with Carlos Petrozzule. Maybe I'm tripping, but I think I'm going to go with Carlos Petrozzule. There's just something about coming on. You already got 15 wins. I will say the CFFCS compared to Samurai House Fight League, whatever the heck he's in, is definitely higher competition. But in terms of the record of his opponents, like nothing stands out for these two. I will say Carlos has taken on far tougher competition. So despite being champions in both promotions, we're going to see how they hang in a UFC octagon. Well, not officially, of course, in the Contender Series. But I'm going to go with Carlos Petrozzule, and judging by how Nick Galante, usually fights his fights, I'm going to guess a round 1 knockout for Carlos Petrozzule, because I can make that prediction. Next up, we have a welterweight matchup as Ronald the Career Ender Humphrey. What the frick type of nickname is that? I love that, Ronald. Takes on Alexis Mantis Miranda. What an aura gamble, calling yourself the career ender. And wow, he's a minus 835 favorite. You rarely see that on the Contender Series. He may be the second biggest we've ever seen. Alexis Miranda plus 510 underdog. He's 27. The career ender, Ronald Humphrey, is 25. 6'2" to 5'11". Height does go to Alexis Miranda. They both have the same reach at around 77 to 76.5. We got to look at the favorite first here. Ronald Humphrey, 25 years old, born and raised out of Atlanta, Georgia. Trains out of the American Top Team Atlanta gym. Some guys who have fought out of there is Diego Lima. He's a name that we recognize. Carl Williams. Of course, a number of guys that you may recognize fight out of American Top Team, but more specifically, the Atlanta one belongs to, I guess, Ronald Humphrey. 1-0 in the LFA. His last win was over Liam Hamill, March 13th, the guy who was 4-0. And all of his opponents' records are very encouraging. When he was 0-0, fought a guy who was 1-2. When he was 1-0, fought a guy who was 3-1. When he was 2-0, fought a guy who was 2-0. His last fight, his guy was 4-0. He actually had a fight scheduled against Busurman Zumagal June 26th. Unfortunately, that bout ended up being canceled. That guy's 5-0. So they have been giving Ronald some tough opponents. This guy has all of his wins in round 1, all of them knockouts, including 4 in his amateur days, and he's never had a fight go longer than 3 minutes and 11 seconds. So clearly, he is the career ender. He's actually ranked as the number 3 pro welterweight on the independent scene in Tennessee, and he's the number 41 pro welterweight out of 270 in the United States Southeast. That's due to Tapology's ranking. So Ronald, he's stepping in. He's a killer. We'll see how he does. I don't know too much about him. Is there anything that I need to know? Definitely not. For Alexis Miranda, he's 9-2. 27 years old, as we mentioned, from Baja California, Mexico. That's right, out there in Tijuana. 2-fight winning streak for the man who trains out of Entram Gym. That gym boasts a number of UFC fighters. Michael Morales fights out of there. Andres Luna Martinetti, Daniel Perez, former UFC fighters, or just MMA fighters you might recognize. Marcelo Rojo, Juan Diaz, a lot of guys. Polo Reyes is fun in there. Wow, a lot of different guys. Manuel Exposito, a lot of guys who've made their rounds in the UFC. Of his 9 wins, 4 KOs, 1 sub. Both of his defeats are by decision. Been a pro since 2022. Last win was in March. Okay, split decision though. Not the most encouraging. Hasn't gotten a finish since July of last year with a round 1 knockout. Nothing really encouraging at all about Alexis Miranda. I think they are feeding Alexis Miranda to Ronald Humphrey. Now, Ronald Humphrey could end up sucking, but there's just something about him that I just can't help but love. So I am going to be going with Ronald Humphrey. We'll see how he does. His nickname's the career ender. Let's just give him some veterans. If he gets a contract, let's just feed him veterans and just get his moniker to a different level. So getting into our third matchup of the evening, we have Sean Clancy Jr. The nickname is The One, representing Scotland, taking on Gary Batman Boletto. Okay. We are just going to write down Sean Clancy. I haven't even looked at the odds here. Sean Clancy Jr. This guy's nickname is Batman. Oh my goodness. Let's look at the odds here. Minus 770 for Sean Clancy Jr., the 8-0 Scottish man. 4 plus 475 for Gary Boletto. Yeah, Gary Boletto. Who let Gary on the Contender Series? Who okayed this? He's 11-3. Sean's 8-0. Sean's 23. Gary's 31. They both naturally fight in welterweight. Wow, a lot of, so far, 2 welterweight fights on this card. 5'10" to 6 foot. Sean's a bit higher, 1 inch in reach. Yeah, these two are very similar. Sean Clancy, let's look at him because I want to save Mr. Gary. Scotland, of course, the home, 9-fight winning streak, went 1-0 as an amateur, and then immediately, had a very stellar amateur career, 7-1. Wow, very good. So why is he on an 8-fight winning streak? Oh, one of his fights is flagged for issues. So he's either 7-0 or 8-0, depending on what they warrant, but he's a Cage Warriors guy. Okay, he's gone a very stellar 6-0 in Cage Warriors, recently won their welterweight title back in December, was slated for a defense in April. That fight fell apart, so he has not fought in 8 months. Decent opponent records. His last 3 opponents have all had double-digit fights, which is very encouraging. Malvin Van Sujam, who he beat, was 15-7 at the time. 5 knockouts, 3 subs, 100% finish rate. He's only ever been to a round 3 once. This kid is very good. Trains out a higher level martial arts out there in Whitburn. Don't know. Oh, Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray, I think, has been through the UFC banner before. Paul Craig. Okay, there we go. Paul Craig fought at this gym. All right, that's good to know. Now, as for his opponent, Gary Batman Boletto, we got to give him some props, man. 4-fight winning streak. From Rhode Island. Shout out Rhode Island. Trains out of Triforce MMA. The same gym as Zachary checks, and there's no one big out of this gym. Their biggest fighter is Greg Rebello, who went 26-9. Decent MMA record. 4 knockouts, 7 subs do give him a 100% finish rate. Of his 3 defeats, he was knocked out twice. So in terms of MMA, this guy last fought in April. Current CES champion. The CES is going to be Classic Entertainment and Sports. His last loss was actually to Billy Ray Goff. Wow, Billy Ray Goff. Before that was Jeremiah Wells. Those are 2 UFC fighters. Jeremiah Wells infamously just submitted Mike to pick oral by. Billy Ray Goff was unfortunately knocked out, so not the most encouraging thing. Hasn't really been... Oh, Daniel Frunzo holds a win over UFC fighter Daniel Frunzo, who I think has been cut by now. But okay, some decent experience from Mr. Gary Boletto. But we have other news. This man has actually competed in a boxing match in 2024 that went to a draw, and actually in June of last year at a bare knuckle fight, won that. In December at a bare knuckle fight, won that, and in March of this year at a bare knuckle fight and won that. So, I don't know. Gary Boletto's actually a tough cookie, but the odds makers have it at Sean Clancy Jr. I am going to go with Sean just because it's MMA, and I think takedowns might play a role in this. But Gary Boletto, I stand corrected. You have earned the moniker Batman because you do have some MMA experience. The second to last matchup of the evening will bring us to the heavyweights. Yes, love the heavyweights. Mario the Shark Piazon, who will be taking on Guilherme Urso Urel. Minus 250. Urso Guilherme Urel is the favorite, plus 185. Mario Piazon is the underdog. 28-29. 1 year older is Urel. Both of them are on the lighter side of heavyweights. Last weights were 240 and 233. Bit of height for Guilherme, bit of reach, but, not too much. They're fairly similar. The underdog, Mario Piazon, comes in representing Bahia, Brazil. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. Fights out of the Galpo de Lute gym with Henrique Marino as the main coach there. Halton Almeida is the number 1 fighter out of that gym. He's actually slated for a matchup in the ACA in Russia. Wow, good for Halton Almeida. Happy to be getting a fight out of the UFC. Some other fighters that have trained there. Eduardo Mora, she's got a fight with Casey O'Neill coming up. And Felipe Franco's got a fight coming up with Alexander Popik in the fall. So, that's a notable gym in Brazil. 7 KOs of his 10 wins are not too bad. 70% knockout rate. His last defeat was in March of 2025. His last win was in March of this year. Won a decision at Chuto, Brazil. I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing really stands out to me about this guy. He was a demo fight champion when he was a 5-0 pro, but Other than that, just seems like your run-of-the-mill, big old hair heavyweight Mario Piazon. He'll be taking on Guilherme Urel. We're familiar with him. We are. He is coming off of a win in the LFA in March. This guy fights out of the Evolution Combat MMA gym. Of course, the only notable fighter from there. All of his fights have ended within 3 rounds, 4 KOs, 3 subs. Both of his defeats have been knockouts, including the last guy he lost to, Josh Hokett. That is right. This is the man Josh Hokett dog-walked on the Contender Series last year, which propelled him to stardom, so there's that. He did return in March with a 1:36 knockout, which is very good to see. And fun fact, all of his fights have ended in round 1, except for his loss to Josh Hokett. So he was supposed to fight in March of this year. That fight, I think, was moved or something and never ended up happening. But he's back, looking to get a contract. I don't know much about Mario Piazon. He may have a better record at 10-1, but you know, Guilherme Urel, we saw him against Josh Hokett. It wasn't the prettiest thing. But the fact that Josh Hokett had to take him in round 2, I think, is more impressive. So I am going to ride with Mr. Guilherme Urel, and we'll see what he does. He's the -250 favorite. Look, if Mario wins, I will not be surprised at all. These are just 2 Brazilian heavyweights. If anything, I want to see one of them actually stand out. Which brings us to the final fight of the evening. It's women. That is right. Is this the first ladies fight to ever headline a Contender Series? Definitely one of a few, but it actually features the daughter of future UFC Hall of Famer Frank Mir. His daughter, Bella Mir, is fighting on this card at 4-0 as a pro, 23 years old. She's the -1400 favorite. Crazy. She takes on the +750 underdog, Alex Opadaka. Opadaka? However you say her name. Both women are 5'7", 4 inches in reach. Go to Alex. For sweet Alex, you know, I'm sorry. I'm sure a lot of people are going to not be picking you. You know, you're 3-1. You are on a 3-fight winning streak. She's from Colorado. Represents Factory X Muay Thai out there in Inglewood. Dustin Jacoby's trained there. Yusuf Salal, Brandon Rival. A lot of notable people have trained there. All of her fights have gone the distance. Her only loss is a split decision. This is just very unfortunate, I will say, for her, because she wasn't supposed to be here. Okay, it was supposed to be a fight with, her name is Oliviera Borelli, who's 5-1 as a pro on a 5-fight winning streak with 3 knockouts. She had to pull out, unfortunately, of this matchup. So this is going to be a short notice step in, obviously, with a full training camp, if you will, for Miss Alex Opadaka, but still, you know, not too much time. Really not. As an amateur, she went 4-2. She literally all of her wins are decisions. So, yeah, Bella Mir is going to definitely be the one that everyone is picking to win this matchup. It's hard not to. She's Frank Mir's daughter, absolute killer in wrestling and BJJ. She's from Vegas. Let's just take a quick peek. So, first MMA fight, 2020, all right? Then wins in 2020 again, then 2022. Then doesn't do any form of mixed martial arts, you know, anything from June of 2022 until December of 2024, where she has a Fury Pro Grappling win, then wins in Fury Pro Grappling in June of 2025. Then in July of 2025, wins another MMA fight, actually her last win, loses in RAF to Alexis Gomez. That's Real American Freestyle Wrestling in November. In December, wins a UFC BJJ matchup. And then last matchup in June was UFC BJJ, got around 3 arm bars. So she's been all over the place. I'm going to pick Bella Mir. I just think it is too easy to just not pick her. Like, it's just, come on. You're a big favorite for a reason. She's great at grappling. She's ranked as the number 11 pound-for-pound woman in Texas. She's only 23 years old, so that's insane to me if I'm being absolutely honest with you. No, this was Alex Opadaka. Wait a second, I didn't know that. Where's Bella Mir ranked? She's the number 23 pound-for-pound woman in Mexico. What the frick? We're done looking at these Tapology rankings. They're all baloney. So that's right. Frank Mir's daughter fights. Will she get whooped? Will she win? I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't freaking know, but I think it'll be entertaining. Nonetheless, I think it will be entertaining. So those are your little Dana White's Contender Series predictions. There's some fun stuff. You know, there's a lot of fun fights, a lot of good stuff going down. I really got my eyes on that first fight, that Carlos Pajula fight, Ronald Humphrey and Sean Clancy Jr. I'll be honest, the first 3 I am more enticed in than the last 2. which isn't really good. But then again, these cards are never really structured with the intent like, oh, the final fight delivers. No, it's just the order the fights go in. So we're going to go Carlos Petrozula, who's an underdog, Ronald Humphrey Jr., who's the second biggest favorite, Sean Clancy Jr., third biggest favorite, Guilherme Uro, the lowest favorite, and Bellamere, who's ridiculously at almost 1,500. So those are your Dana White Contender Series, Episode 3 of Season 10 predictions. But we don't need to predict what we're going to talk about next. That's right, UFC Sacramento went down this past weekend, and you already know we watched it, and we're here to discuss it. So let's dive right in, as we had a bunch of finishes. I'll say this was a successful event. Okay, we really only had one dud, and it was the co-main event. Other than that, every single fight, I will say, delivered. We kicked it off with Chanel Dyer and Elise Reed, and Chanel Dyer TKO'd her way to a victory. Excellent work, Chanel. I mean, come on, Chanel Dyer, are we kidding? We knew she was good. She gets her, I believe, 6th career knockout, 136 significant strikes to 49, even mixed in a takedown in round 2, pure domination from the Nightmare. She's now 2-0 as a pro with both knockouts, or I should say in UFC, she's 2-0. And she may be, if we're giving out rookies of the year for women, she might be the women's rookie of the year. Overall, I don't know if she's going rookie of the year for, collectively, but not too bad. Win in March, win in August, and she's trending upwards. Very good stuff. For Elise Reed, her opponent, yeah, she's 8-6 now, going to be 4-6 in the UFC. She's getting cut. It's 2 straight losses by knockout. Elise Reed's gonzo, but Chanel Dyer, happy for her. Women's strawweight has a fantastic fighter, and I'm really excited to see what she brings to the table. She can definitely compete, especially with her boxing. Her boxing is so bloody good. She's definitely someone where it's fun to root for her. So we'll see who she takes on next. It's going to be, interesting. I'm going to go with Sam Hughes. If Sam Hughes is still in the UFC, she's kind of your run-of-the-mill average woman strawweight, if you will. And I think she could be a good opponent for Chanel Dyer. But the boxing looked great from Chanel. Kicks off the card with the TKO, and we correctly predicted it. So great work, Chanel. Minus 650 favorite for a reason. Next up, middleweight division, Jackson McVeigh knocks out Wes Schultz, getting his 4th career knockout. Great work for the Moose. Jackson McVeigh, 100% finish rate. Yeah, as simple as this fight was, on the feet, fairly competitive. Wes did land a takedown, attempted a submission. Did seem to be more in control, and then all it took was one big knee from Wes. Down goes Jackson. A couple follow-up hammer fists. Jason Herzog called it off. Great win for Jackson McVeigh. After starting off 0-2, he is now 2-0 in 2026. Both of them round 1 finishes. Excellent work for Jackson McVeigh, and he's looked much better, and then having to take on Bruno Ferreira and Zachary. He really looked composed here. The knee up the middle was perfect. Down went Wes, and he just pounced right on him. So great win for Jackson McVeigh. He was the minus 175 favorite, and he gets it done. So exciting stuff for him. As for Wes Schultz, you've been active. I'll say that 3rd fight of the year. He's 1-2. He went 1-1 on the Contender Series, might I add, over 2 seasons. I just don't know if he's cut out for the UFC. He'll be back. I'd like to see, give him a grappler of some kind. I don't really know. Middleweight is so weird, but Cedric Dumas is taking on Mickey Gall. The winner of that can take on Wes Schultz, or the winner of that gets cut. I don't care, but that's an option. As for Jackson McVeigh, this is where things get interesting. I don't know. Was Michelle Barra cut? Was Michelle Barra cut after losing to Sean Magomedov? If he wasn't, I would want to see Jackson McVeigh versus Michelle Barra. But if he was cut, then definitely just bye-bye Michelle Barra. Or, we could do that. There's also a matchup between Kyle Dawkins and Marc-Andre Barriault. I'd say the winner of that versus Jackson McVeigh, I would find pretty entertaining, just to give you some middleweight options. But great win for McVeigh. Gets the card started with another knockout. We loved it. Next, kind of a slower pace matchup, nothing to write home about, but still competitive. Stan Dorsanville steps in on short notice to upset Gage Young. That's right, Gage Young, fully in control in round 1, outstruck him 48-23, landed a takedown, thought he was going to finish him at some points. But then round 2, Stan changes the tide, outstrikes him 50-48 significantly, lands his own takedown, and wins round 2. And then round 3, Gage is throwing takedown attempts, Stan's landing a takedown here and there. And then ultimately, striking-wise, Stan outstrikes him 50-41. And seemingly out of nowhere, the drill, Stan Dorvinsel, makes it 6-0. That is right, Stan Dorvinsel wins his UFC debut. Impressive. Underdog, short notice, only 26 years old. Great work. Great work for Stan. Very happy for him. Ultimately, did what we had to do in the lightweight division, which is not an easy division to get wins in. So great work, Stan, and I'm excited to see who they give him next. Lightweight's deep. Lightweight's as deep as they come, and I think we're going to find someone fun for him to take on. In particular, I could get behind like a Chase Hooper versus Stan Dorvinsel. I really could. Or maybe even Lance Gibson Jr. Lance is only 1-1 in the UFC. That could be fun. Maybe Terrence McKinney as well. But great work for Stan. I'm happy for him. For Gage Young, he was a pretty big prospect, and that's overhyping him. He was a decent prospect. People were somewhat rooting for him, but now he's 2-2 in the UFC, all of them decisions, and I don't know. I don't know what to do with him next. He can take on Nasrat Haqpasarat for all I care. The fight itself belongs to Stan Dorvinsel. Great victory, Stan. With that, we got into the featherweight division as Marcio Barbosa just destroys Ryan Coos. Ryan Coos ultimately was making his debut on short notice. He was the plus 615 underdog. But when you're the biggest favorite on the card at minus 900, you're pretty freaking good. Marcio Barbosa makes it his second straight win in the UFC, second straight round 1 knockout, and he's inserted himself into Rookie of the Year conversation, all right? When you get 2 wins, you're entered into the conversation, and this man is on a round 1 knockout streak that I just cannot seemingly understand. 16 career knockouts, 6 straight wins, and he now has a professional record of 19-2. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. And let me just tell you how this fight finish played out. So these two are kind of going at each other. It's 11 significant strikes to 5 as a total. So, not landing too much. Marcio clips him with a hook, and Ryan just goes down and is kind of sitting up looking at him, and his eyes are just glossed over. Very harrowing knockout. And then Marcio's like, should I punch him? Should I not punch him? And thankfully Herzog stepped in, but wow, scary stuff from Marcio Barbosa, and there's only one way to send him. Obviously, I'm going to say Jamal Emmers is going to be one option, but I would much rather see him against David Onama. David Onama is ranked at 14. He has not fought since his first and only main event loss to Steve Garcia last November, and I think Marcio Barbosa deserves to fight into the rankings. I think he would be very good fighting in the rankings, and I don't see any reason why we can't do it. So let's make that fight. As for Ryan Coos, he's 9-3. The Third Street Savage is not really cut out for the UFC, but I'm going to say there's a chance he takes on Larian Douglas, we're going to talk about him in just a bit. Next up, we got a latest finish, maybe of the entire year, at 3 minutes and 59 seconds. I guess rounds 4 and 5 finishes would be later, but in terms of a 3-round fight, the latest you can get with 1 second left. Competitive fight, Chris Padilla taking it to Nasrat. I'd say a very uneventful fight. 125 significant strikes to 71. Every round looked better for Chris, but he was kind of just schooling Nasrat Haqpasarat. And then with 20 seconds left, he locks in an arm triangle. With 10 seconds left, they fall to the ground. And Frank Trigg, calls it with a second left as Nasrat was just out cold. So how about the 6th career submission for Chris Padilla, the 15th career finish, and his 8th straight MMA win. He's going to be 4-0, actually 5-0 in the UFC with a draw. Great stuff. Great stuff for Chris Padilla on this card. And one thing we learned on this card is that we're going to need a rematch between him and MarQuel Mederos. They had a draw in April, and they both fought on this card, and they both had great performances. So I think we're going to need to run back that fight. Unless we want to give Chris a ranked opponent. There's always a Grant Dawson out there. I think a Matus Rebecca could be fun. Tom Nolan, Manuel Torres, a lot of fun guys out there for Chris Padilla to take on. For Nasrat Haqpasarat, 2 straight losses, both of them pretty brutal. Just nothing really inspiring from the performance here. That's how I was floating out. Maybe he could take on Gage Young next. I don't know. Nasrat, if you want to keep him, you can. At this point, he's just good for, funny finishes. If you want to talk about a funny finish, the funniest finish of the night belongs to our first heavyweight matchup we had on the card between Shamil Gaziev and Kennedy Nchukwu. And let me tell you how this is going, okay? Kennedy's obviously a bit lankier, all right? And he's fighting with his arms down at his sides. His arms are nowhere guarding his face. And it legit takes one punch from Shamil as Kennedy's moving backwards, and he literally video game character flops against the back of the cage and hits the mat. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. Kennedy Nchukwu leaves his chin hanging out there against the GOAT, Shamil Gaziev, and gets bloody caught. That's right, Shamil, at 36, gets his 10th career knockout, 13th career finish. First win since February of 2025. Such a long time coming for my sweet Shamil Gaziev. Very happy that he got it done. Big Shamil Gaziev fan, if you weren't aware of that. He is just so lovable. But yeah, minute and 20 seconds. Fastest finish of the evening. It doesn't take much longer than that when you're taking on Shamil. So happy for Shamil. It's pretty evident he can hang with the top heavyweights in the division. It's obviously hit or miss when it comes to, some of these heavyweights in terms of if Shamil can beat them. But he was a favorite here for a reason, and he looked good doing it. So one opponent I'm going to throw out there is Ante Delege. I think Ante Delege and Shamil Gaziev would put on a banger of a matchup. I'll throw out Tyrell Fortune as well, and I'll even throw out Derek Lewis. There's a lot of things you can do with the man from Bahrain and Shamil Gaziev. As for Kennedy Nchukwu, hasn't won since December of 2024. This is his third straight winless fight. He had a draw to end last year, but mid-summer last year was submitted by Valter Walker in 54 seconds. So for Kennedy, he's 14-7-1. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I don't know what to do with Kennedy Nchukwu, to be honest. There's heavyweights out there that he can fight. You know what? I think Ryan Spann is taking on Mario Pinto. Whoever loses that can take on Kennedy Nchukwu. That's what I'm going to say. That's a fight coming up on a fight night. We can do that. But great knockout for Shamil Gaziev. Biggest upset of the evening, at least in my opinion. Odds makers even might have to agree, as the plus 290 37-year-old Jamal Emmers knocks out the gunslinger, the minus 380 favorite, Larion Douglas, in round number 1. Yeah, a lot of round 1 finishes on this card. Out of our 13 fights that we had a ridiculous 6 of them ending by round 1 finish, and I'm here for it. I really am. Actually, it might have been 7. Yeah, 7 fights ended in round 1. Perfect. But yeah, Jamal Emmers, basically him and Larion striking against each other very even, about 14 apiece. And then Jamal stings him with a straight, and it dislocates his orbital. Oh my goodness, so painful. His eye was cooked so badly, I don't even want to think about it. And he just curls up in a ball. I mean, nothing to do. Like, legit, his eye socket broke him. Just cooked. So Larion Douglas, shockingly knocked down. For a guy with unlimited power, getting very humbled in this one. For Jamal Emmers, his third straight win. Are you kidding me? Third straight win. 4-1 in his last 5. Jamal Emmers, look out. Look out. Jamal Emmers is coming for your boy's job, okay? Great win for Jamal. I'm excited to see what we do next with him. There's a lot of different featherweights at play. That's why I was saying maybe someone like Marcio Barbosa, maybe someone like David Onama, even I'll throw out there. There's I just like using the same names on events, but I'd even say winner of Patricia Pitbull and Juhu Choi. Larion Douglas is tough. He really is. And that's why I think him versus Ryan Coos could be a good pick-me-up fight. Honestly, that's what I want to see next. But great upset for Jamal. No one came close to having a better upset on this card, in my opinion. And I think he's in for another big fight. 37 years old. I think they give him one last shot to maybe make the rankings. With that, we got into the main card. Anthony Wint, Terrence Chapman, the heavyweights. Of course, Anthony Wint had just fought on the Contender Series not but 2 weeks ago, and he makes easy work of Terrence Chapman. He was a minus 1,000 favorite, but the most interesting thing, he cashes at plus 650 to get a round 1 submission. How about that, Anthony? Terrence Chapman landed one significant strike. Besides that, he was taken down, held in position, and hit with an arm triangle. So there you have it. Anthony Wint getting his second career submission. 7 of his 8 wins are now by finish. So Wint wants to take over. Wint wants to be the man. Low-key him versus Kennedy Nchukwu you could do. Even like, I'd say low-key, you could throw him in there against Derek Lewis. I think he beats Derek Lewis. Like, Derek Lewis is kind of trending downwards as of late, but still, That's the level of guy I think he could beat right now. I mean, Wynn's an absolute killer, 30 years old, and he's coming for all these top heavyweights. For Terrence Chapman, I would not be surprised if they feed him to another heavyweight coming off the Contender Series. Just keep that on your radar. They might feed him. We got heavyweights for the next 6 or 8 episodes. I guarantee one of them will be fighting their way against Terrence Chapman. So, great win, Anthony Wynn. Simple as it gets, a little arm triangle choke at 4 minutes and 29 seconds in round number 1. There's a reason he's one of the best heavyweight prospects that have now joined the roster. Next up, we had our final women's matchup of the evening, and it did not disappoint as Carli Judice gets another knockout in round number 1. This girl's crazy. 4 straight wins. 3 of those knockouts, 2 in round 1, 3 of them performance bonuses. I mean, nuts. Carli Judice is fantastic. 7-2, one of the best new fighters we've had in the women's flyweight division. And, simple as this, she hit Jesla Chavez with a straight kick to the gut. Jesla Chavez dropped. Carli Judice pounced on her. Easy peasy. Jesla Chavez loses her first professional fight. She's now 8-1. I think she should fight Juliana Miller next, in my personal opinion. As for Carli Judice, we're going to go to the women's flyweight rankings. And I'm going to list out Gabriela Fernandez, JJ Aldrich, Eduardo Mora, Casey O'Neill, Karine Silva, Miranda Maverick. Legit the bottom 15. I think she gives a run for their money. More specifically, JJ Aldrich, I think, should take on Carli Judice. But she gets one of the there were only 2 performance bonuses on this card. She got one of them. I mean, I'll be honest. I thought that Jamal Emmers should have gotten one. Shamil should have gotten one. Marcio Barbosa. You could even gone Chris Padilla. But hey, not too mad. Carli Judice gets another knockout in her career. 6 total career knockouts of her 7 wins. 6-7. Great work for Carli Judice. And then, of course, you may be wondering, what's the other performance of the night? Well, it was MarQuel Mederos getting the upset win over Mason Jones. He was plus 295. Wow. He was the biggest underdog of the card. I stand corrected. Against the minus 370 Mason Jones. He should not have been this high, obviously, but great win for MarQuel Mederos. Make that MarQuel's 10th straight win. Wow, this guy's nasty. All right, he is also 4-0 with a draw in the UFC. 4-0. Great stuff. His only draw is to Chris Padilla. That's why I say we should run it back. Finally gets a finish in the UFC. Finally on to his 7th career knockout. But yeah, great work here. Mason Jones was kind of working his magic, taking him to school. Outstruck him 48-41 in round 1. Was out striking him in round 2, and then just got hit with an elbow, got kind of wobbled, got clipped with another elbow, and then he managed to stay on his feet, but he's just getting teed off with, hands are down. Mason Jones is a tough man. He's a Welsh boy, if you will. He's from Wales, and he's just getting hit with some nasty shots, and I'm happy with the stoppage from Herzog. Herzog with some great stoppages on the fight, or on the evening, I should say. And yeah, we're happy for MarQuel. I think him and Chris Padilla would give us a banger of a rematch. Obviously, MarQuel may be on to bigger and better fights, but, we'll see. For Mason Jones, it's tough. His 8-fight winning streak is snapped, which, is really much of a bummer, but he's still 8-3. There's tons of lightweights out there. There's just unlimited lightweights for him to take on. If I can maybe, who's a guy that he could potentially take on? Rong Zhu. Rong Zhu's fighting Rafa Garcia. Whoever loses that is going to be on the losing side of a 3-fight winning streak. I think whoever loses that versus Mason Jones, recipe for success. So we have that, but great win, MarQuel. I definitely thought MarQuel Mederos was good. He definitely, I didn't realize he was plus 295. He should not have been plus 295 as an underdog, but gets it done. Round 2 knockout. Low key was probably the best fight of the night. These two were just swinging their heads off until the main event, I should say. But in terms of all the 3-round fights, this one delivered. Reinier de Ridder, Roman Dolidze, light heavyweight division. If you ever think, I wonder if MMA is rigged or that fighter just really sucks, just watch this fight. That's all you need to do. Reinier de Ridder TKOs Roman Dolidze in 4 minutes, landing 71 significant strikes to 1, 106 total strikes to 4. Yeah. Reinier de Ridder was the minus 400 favorite, but I mean, come on. Just what are we doing here, bro? What are we doing? 5th career knockout, 19th career finish for Reinier. Roman Dolidze just pulls guard, and is immediately just taken down and TKO'd. All right. And Frank Trigg, I saw a lot of people saying, oh, this fight looks rigged because Frank Trigg isn't stopping it. It's not like Reinier de Ridder was landing haymakers. He was just landing little punches to Roman Dolidze, nothing really stopping. And eventually, he got into full top mount on his back, and Roman Dolidze just curled up in a ball and was absolutely destroyed. And by the way, I've never seen Roman lose this bad. I've seen him drop decisions. I've seen him get submitted in round 4. Okay, but to get TKO'd in 4 minutes? No. So, Reinier de Ridder, welcome to the light heavyweight division. You can clearly beat someone. I thought Roman Dolidze was always a bigger middleweight, but clearly Reinier de Ridder can hang. Who should he take on? He said anyone in light heavyweight but Robert Whittaker. Bogdan Guskov immediately comes to mind. I think that's a good fight. Maybe the loser of Azamat Murzakanov and Dominic Reyes, or maybe even the winner of that. But Reinier de Ridder will definitely be getting back to some big fights coming up here. And I do want to shout out Reinier de Ridder, who has had 4 fights in a calendar year. From July 2025 to August of 2026, it's obviously just over a year, but it's basically a full year. He's had 4 fights. So good work for Reinier de Ridder since joining in 2024. He's been an absolute workhorse, and I'm excited to see how he does at light heavyweight. For Roman Dolidze, he's 38. He's lost 3 times in a row now. I think it's time for him to call it. I really do. He hasn't beaten a person currently ranked in the UFC anymore. His last notable win was Marvin Vettori. Marvin also not won in a long time. Before that, Kevin Holland. Before that, Anthony Smith. Before that, Jack Hermanson. All those guys are not notable anymore. So, Dolidze's 15-6. I see the only way him sticking around at light heavyweight is if you feed him to Iwo Baranowski or someone like that. Abdurakhman Yakayev, here's your next opponent. But yeah, dominant work from Reinier. Gets the TKO. Roman Dolidze, time to hang it up. But co-main event is where we saw our third and final upset of the evening, as Vitor Petrino, despite being the -145 favorite, did kind of feel like the underdog. Like, Sergey Spivak was ranked. He's going to drop now. Number 6. Vitor was unranked and manages to dominate him. 30-27. Outgrapples him 4 takedowns, 6 minutes of control time. Outstrikes him 23-7, 19-3, and 22-13 in terms of significance. Total strikes 126-33. Great work for Vitor Petrino, as that's now going to be 4 straight wins at heavyweight, with his last 2 being very good and in 2026. So Vitor Petrino is oddly going to go from unranked to number 6. I feel like he's more number 8. I feel like Curtis Blades and Rizvan Kuniev should be ranked above him. So if he lands in the 6, 7, or 8 spot, I would consider myself, correct in my assumption. For Sergey Spivak, this fight doesn't really make sense, as he looked good against Alante Deleje, and he had takedown success against Walter Cortez Acosta. So Vitor Petrino was just on one. For Sergey Spivak, Walter Walker. Walter Walker is the perfect person to finish him and get into the top 10. So that's what I want to see next. But yeah, I rode with Spivak here, kind of a last-minute switch-up, which I wouldn't really say I regret it. But, another thing is that Sergey Spivak, actually lost weight coming into this. I don't know if that played a part, but I don't know. We'll have to see if he ever returns. But yeah, great win for Vitor Petrino. For him, it gets interesting. There's rumors Sergey Pavlovich might be welcoming Jamal Hill to the heavyweight division, which I think everyone wants to see. So then what do we do with Vitor Petrino? Well, it's not going to be Hokit. But I know Waldo Cortez Acosta is taking on Curtis Blades, and I know Alexander Volkov is taking on Rizvan Kuniev, if I'm not mistaken. That's 2 fights that are going to be made. So out of that, we'll see who wins and loses, and Vitor can take on one of them. That's something fun you can do. But great work for Vitor Petrino. He's inserted himself into the top 10 of the heavyweight division, which is just so weird to say. He's only 28 years old. Good stuff, my man. Which brings us into our main event, and is now as simple as can be. Gregory Rodrigues in the main event always delivers. Clearly fight of the night. The thing that is on everyone's mind, though, was the scorecard. So, obviously, Gregory Rodrigues won. Obviously, Anthony Hernandez is a dog. He did really good. But Anthony Hernandez only won 1 round. Okay? He only won one round. All right? All 4 rounds were set in stone. Matter of fact, they're so set in stone, no one can even figure out how he won another one of the other rounds, okay? 3 knockdowns, all with leg kicks for Gregory Rodrigues, including 2 in round 2. Defends 26 takedown attempts, outstrikes him significantly 174-90, and total strikes 243 to 111. Doubling his total strikes. Gregory Rodrigues on one. He knew this was make or break, and he fought like it. I'm talking, it's round 5. These two are swinging for the freaking fences. All right, Gregory Rodrigues is going to go from 11 to being ranked number 6. Maybe 7, but I think we should throw him in at number 6. I mean, he's earned it. 34 years old. This is going to be his 4th straight win, and on this winning streak, 2 performances of the nights, a fight of the night. Mind you, he's 7-1 in his last 8 fights, and that only loss was in his first main event to Jared Cannonier, which was a fight of the night comeback. It was amazing. So, Gregory Rodrigues, your absolute dog. I mean, he put the pounding on Hernandez. You know, obviously Hernandez is tough. Obviously Hernandez is great. This is now 2 straight losses, right? Anthony Hernandez is not having a good 2026, and clearly his style of aggressive wrestling, Sean Strickland and Gregory Rodrigues both have figured out how to avoid it. So, in terms of what's next, you know, Ikram Alkaserev, I like a Bo Nickel fight, maybe someone else unranked, maybe Christian Leroy Duncan. You know, it's going to be guys like that for Anthony Hernandez. For Gregory Rodrigues, it's going to be your Kyle Barralos, your Joe Pyfer. He called out Dricius Duplessis, which is fun. Brendan Allen, you know, he is now in a conversation to take on some really big names here. I was also very shocked to learn that Gregory Rodrigues was a plus 180 underdog. Okay, I don't know who was picking Hernandez, but it wasn't me. So we just predicted an underdog to win in the main event, and we didn't even realize it. So great work for Rodrigues. I tell you guys, he was just swinging for the fences. The takedown defenses were on point, and 49-46 was the only correct scorecard. I swear they were doing everything in their power to rig this for the hometown man, Hernandez. But great win, Gregory. Excited to see what he does next. He is having himself a fantastic 2026. 2 wins, 2 great wins. Good stuff. So we move on to UFC Shanghai. That's right. On your next episode, we'll be previewing UFC Shanghai and recapping all of the events from Dana White Contender Series episode 3. So a lot of fun fights on UFC Shanghai. It starts at 2 a.m. Central Time here in Chicago. Main card's at 5. I might wake up for the main card. We'll see what I do Friday night. I might try and stay in unless my new coworkers want to get active. Who knows? I'm always down. Umar Nurmagomedov is back to take on Song Yadong. A title shot awaits, depending on the result of Murad Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan. But I tell you what, I think win or lose, not win or lose. I think no matter the outcome of the title fight, whoever wins this fight is fighting for a belt next. Whether it's against Murad right away, or whether it's against Petr Yan after a Sugar Sean O'Malley rematch, all right? I think we're seeing that. We also have a top 5 women's strawweight fight between Yan Cheon and Denise Gomez. Title shot implications on the line. The return of Kaya Sakura. The debut of Lu Si, all right? Big light heavyweight prospect. Bilal Hassan makes his debut, the flyweights version of Anthony Wint. Alex Perez and Suma Darji run it back. The undefeated flyweight prospect Andre Lima is back. Ray Tazura's back at flyweight. Jack Jenkins and Sean Woodson's a fun featherweight fight, flying under the radar. Got a bunch of debut fighters, got some fighters returning. UFC Shanghai is going to be a lot of fun. But that's all I have, ladies and gentlemen. Nice and simple. You know, I will say it's 10:06 p.m., and I got to be up in 7 hours. So, yeah, that's fun. I know that doesn't impact Zach right now, but it impacts future Zach. And I'm sure as you're listening to this, you're laughing at, look at this idiot staying up recording this. But if you're listening to this, then I absolutely love you. So, thank you so much. But, yeah, lots of fun stuff that went down at Sacramento. One of the better fight nights of the year. We're on a roll. All right, we've been on a roll for good events. I'll say 330 was a good event. I don't want to say it was bad, but, you know, August has been great so far, and we'll see how it rounds out with UFC Shanghai. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again so much for listening. One day, this will be one of the biggest MMA podcasts on the planet. My goal, it used to be the biggest MMA podcast. Maybe it still is. Let's make it the biggest MMA podcast. But I'll catch you all next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.